So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another student interview. We are joined today with Ebbs, who is actually London-based as well. And by the way, I know background sounds or looks a little funny. I'm actually at my friend's place before I head off again, but he's doing around 18,000 a month with his real estate agency, and yeah, just a very, very interesting conversation. Talked about bringing in appointment setters, talked about bringing in lead flow at high quantity, and yeah, he's killing it. As I said, working with 10 clients to around 18,000 pounds a month profit. So that's around like $21,000. And yeah, with no further ado, let's roll into it. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another student interview. We are joined today with Yves, who's actually in London as well. And just immediately looking at like your office, dude, I fuck with your apartment. I see you got the rebounder outside. You're sitting on the comfy, dude. I'm all my stuff is in storage at the moment. As I said, I'm staying at my buddy's house at the moment because no Airbnbs are allowed. But that Herman Miller, dude, that thing is a godsend. That thing is a godsend. But yeah, he is killing it in the real estate niche, doing around 18K a month at the moment, working with 10 clients. So yeah, with no further ado, you want to introduce yourself? How you got into this weird, wacky world?
Yeah, sure. What's up, guys? So yeah, my name's Yves, as Iman said, based in London. It's a weird one for me. So I actually started out in this kind of space 4.5 years ago, back in like 2016, when this whole space was kind of like brought up from the ground. I was actually doing my economics degree at university at the time. So I was kind of just doing it like on the side, more of like a lifestyle thing. And to be honest, I was testing loads of different niches, as like, a lot of people do, doing like FBA and stuff like that. Like I'd do like 25K a month on FBA, but I'd get like 10 or 20% profit. So I was just like, this isn't for me. And to be honest, like for me, like I didn't really have that sense of pride when people ask me like, oh, like you're doing quite well. Like, what are you doing? And, I didn't really want to tell them. So like, eventually like I came to SMMA, and to be honest, like treated it more like a lifestyle business for a couple of years, and then it's kind of more recently I've got kind of like laser focused. There's been like a couple of things that have really helped me do that. I'm sure we'll get into that in the interview, but yeah, that's kind of where we are at the moment. As Ima said, focusing on the property niche. Yeah, for now.
Awesome. So you're working with realtors in the UK or the US?
So it's in the UK and US, but it's not just realtors. It's like the property niche generally. So like say it's like a prop tech company. I'll work. That's basically like property technology, or like an investor. So anything kind of like related to property is what I kind of do. So it doesn't necessarily just have to be like a real estate agent or an estate agent. So yeah, it can be like kind of anything within that space.
Really curious to hear what's been the difference when you're working with clients in the US compared to UK, because I definitely think there's cultural differences between UK, Germany. Right now we're in talks with a Middle Eastern client, and it's been that's I've never had a Middle Eastern client. It's been very interesting the way talks go and they do business compared to, say, for example, some of my German clients or the US clients. So anything you picked up on?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say UK are definitely more skeptical. Getting into kind of like the emotional part of that conversation, definitely like you have to like finesse it a little bit more to kind of get them to open up. In the US, to be honest, I found people are generally more happy just to on a one call just go kind of yes. But at the same time, there's more competition out there, right? So those are the main differences I've noticed. But for that reason, I'm kind of like focusing, going to start moving more into the US. It's been mostly UK so far. And yeah, I'd say with the US, they're generally just like, I don't know about you, but just like more receptive and enthusiastic to kind of like young entrepreneurs. It's kind of almost like a positive, whereas in the UK, to be honest, like not so much now, but like can be perceived as a bit of a negative sometimes if you're a younger kind of guy.
For sure, for sure. I think just in general, like the US is just it's a country full of buyers and debt. So yeah, definitely a country that's very excited to buy, and they don't take as there's not as much time that goes into the decision. With them, I've just noticed they go off of gut, as you said. It's a lot easier to do the one call close. Um, and yeah, even just like sometimes, like it's been weird for me, like even this year, now that we've moved to doing a demo call, Danny does a demo call and then I do the discovery call, and then also the fact that we have a guarantee. Um, like it's been the only clients who I haven't been able to close, who I've actually made an offer to, have been European clients. All US ones say yes, because I mean it's like we're literally guaranteeing you results, or we'll refund our service fee. So yeah, it is interesting to see the cultural differences. Now, one thing that was very interesting that you mentioned is your agency was a lifestyle business for you for a while. When did that, and like yeah, like when did you kind of make that shift? Had one too many coconuts in Bali and decided, you want to ramp things up, or?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I was always doing like good enough. Like I was always doing like in comparison to like an average like UK salary, which is just I still can't believe how low like average salaries are. I was still always comfortable, but the thing is, I would have a good month, and then I would, I'm quite social. I'll go out, go with friends, party, like do all these things, and then I'd just like self sabotage and like shoot myself in the foot. And this was like a perpetual cycle for years. And honestly, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was just in this cycle, and that almost became the norm, just to kind of like stay hovering around this kind of like low monthly kind of profit. And really, one of the reasons why at least, is because I was just too focused on like that financial goal. And in a sense, I put it on this pedestal, like X financial goal per month is like what I need to get to. Cause like you hear all this stuff online, right? Like have your vision on this goal, etc. But problem was I was putting it on this pedestal, which meant by default, like I wasn't there, right? The goal was here, I was here. So like the goal was almost like better than me. And I like created this path, like these roadblocks along the way to get there. So like more recently, I've just kind of like got super clear on my vision, like what I actually want. It's not just that amount of money. It's actually much clearer than that. And because of that, it's like cool. Like when I get to that goal, it'll be cool when I get there. Funnily enough, I'm going to hit that goal like within the next couple of weeks, and I'm like, it'll be cool, but then it'll just be on to the next thing. And for me, honestly, like the big shift it came down to, I'd say about 8 months ago, probably around the time you launched the course, probably around there, and I jumped in right at the start. I just kind of deleted all social media. That was a big one. That was probably like from your advice, to be honest, just like got rid of all of it. You know, got all distractions away, like stop going out and partying so much. Just got super clear on my vision, like what do I actually want? One of the first things was for me, like kind of weird, but I've been single for 6 years. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed that life, but I was like, okay, what do I want, say, in a relationship? The same week, the girl of my dreams turned up. From the minute I saw her, I knew she was the one, and now we're together. She's been living with me during lockdown. She's actually home for the weekend, and I just got super clear on it. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I can see clearly, like what you do internally has a direct kind of effect on your external world, on your results. And I just basically did the same thing for the business side of things. And one thing that I kind of figured out, which was crazy, is that like 95% of our thoughts are exactly the same as yesterday. Meaning basically every day we're thinking and doing the same thing. So I kind of realized, look, if I'm thinking and doing the same things, the results are just always going to be the same. So I made a real conscious effort to actually take a step back, meditate on what I actually want to get to. And then kind of things just sort of started showing up. And it's funny, actually, I think you introduced me to the Muse. I was speaking with Talia over there. I don't know if you know her. She's like their brand ambassador. They're sending me out the Muse S. I don't know if you've tried it, but if you haven't tried it, I'll hook you guys up, and they'll definitely just send you out one, and to give it a new go. But yeah, just stuff like that. Honestly, it's been like the stuff outside of the business that has really affected the business. And now, with the goals I want to hit, they're much bigger. That, like, for example, I think our mutual friend Michael Gardner, right? The stuff he's doing out in Bangladesh, he's doing charity work. I've done charity work out in Africa and Uganda, and we were talking about stuff we can do together. It's like that deeper why of what this can lead to, and everything else just kind of flows when you've got that bigger vision. At least for me, is what I found. So yeah, that was kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but hopefully
no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, so you said it was around 7-8 months ago that things kind of started ramping up for you. Obviously, the main thing was just nailing down, focusing, decluttering, removing shit out of your life. From a appointment setting perspective and from a lead inflow perspective, what did you do to get to a point where, you know, you're working with 10 clients right now? How many meetings a month, actual sales scenarios are you having at the moment?
Yeah, so it's kind of weird, like because I've obviously been in this for a little while. I've done things like almost like backwards. So back like years ago, I was like, okay, I need to get a sales team when I wasn't even doing that much money, right? But even though I kind of did things in the wrong order, it kind of built up all the skills that I need to today, and it's kind of why I'm getting this hockey stick growth now. So I actually don't do any outreach myself. It's all done by the team. This week, I'm just looking at my calendar, had 19 sales calls. I've actually moved to like doing it into just testing it out for mainly UK clients, and it's actually working a bit better. So we do like a 20-minute call and then a more in-depth like screen share to kind of go through what we do. And that seems to be working well. Also helps with like overcoming objections and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's basically like what I'm doing. You're probably going to ask like, how's the appointment setting set up and that kind of stuff. So I have appointment setters like the standard kind of rate, but I also have like a real like solid English speaking UK based sales team who are exceptional. Like it's taken me probably 18 months to find my unicorn. Alistair, shout out, I'm sure he'll be watching this. He's just absolutely incredible. He like took apart my processes and was like, we should do this, 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 and this, and just like made me look a fool, but drastically helped me improve my agency. And now like my goal is for him is to like get him taking the initial calls. So, because to be honest, like I'm spending so much time on calls, like I don't have that much other time to do other stuff at the moment, just because it's generally so busy. So like the next kind of iteration is going to be getting some help with those initial calls because they're quite straightforward, to be honest. But yeah, that's what I'm doing for kind of appointment setting and sales
That's awesome. Do you say 19 this week or this month?
this week.
So how many appointments are you having a month?
Probably like 65, 70, honestly.
Jesus, I thought I did well last month with 30 to 35 demos. Damn, dude, that's nuts.
Different retainer levels though, right? It's
Yeah, yeah,
it's a little easier to get appointments in how I do it.
yeah. I mean, well, let's talk about that then. Are you going for um, lower retainers and more quantity, or what's your pricing structure usually?
Yeah, so at the moment, average client's probably like 1,500 a month, and I could be charging more for that. But again, this kind of comes down to UK US difference. In the UK, to be honest, like the way we do property is, can you swear on this or like?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it is fucked how we do property. We are completely behind like the US and everyone else. The sales commissions are like a fraction of the US, which basically means they earn less money from your service, right? So because of that, it like when you run out all the numbers, you calculate it, it literally doesn't make sense for them to pay like 3, 4, 5K a month. However, in the US, it does. That's why I'm kind of moving that way. So at the moment, yeah, relatively low retainers, but it's okay because I'm kind of going more for volume to just, build up all that social proof. We started doing some different ads and stuff, which have been working really well. So, yeah, that's kind of where we are. But the goal is to really move towards having less clients, but higher retainer, kind of moving forward.
That's awesome. Yeah, just to kind of touch on that. Actually, one of my students doing 15, 20K a month in London as well, actually. He was, we never managed to find time to make it work, but he was about to introduce me to Knight Frank's top real estate agent. And, this guy sold a house near the Boltons for 100 million. I think it was last year. And by the way, if anyone, people don't understand property price until they've been to London. Like there's nothing else like in the world. Potentially New York is the only thing that kind of comes close. But yeah, 100 million pounds plus house. But yeah, and I was like, dude, this guy must be fucking raking it in, because I've watched like like $1 Million Listing.
Yeah,
and
Ryan Serhan and those guys.
Yeah, and because when they sell like a $30 million house, this equivalent of being like $120-130 million house. You see like their commission like 1 million, and you're like, fuck me. So I was like, dude, this guy must be raking it in. And then that's when he told me, he's like, no, in the UK the sales commissions are appalling. So this guy's probably doing 3-4 times as much volume as some of the top dogs in America, but making like half as much. But yeah, definitely know what you mean from that perspective. Now, how long you been running your agency for?
So since like 2016, but honestly, seriously running it, I would say, to be honest, like last 8, 9 months, actually being focused, like having a proper,
Mm.
like proper morning routine, like having a solid work blocks, no distractions, all that
Mm.
kind of stuff that you preach. Probably 8, 9 months, to be honest, properly, I'd say.
So it seems like you've kind of lived a couple different lives, and I think that's one thing I always tell people. I'm like, get perspective. Like, go do that digital nomad thing. Go party. Go like do the literally 6 hours a day, work 12 days. Like, I like to stretch the extremes because then I have context, and like that's one thing I always see people. I know so many business people who never let their hair down and enjoyed themselves or never traveled, and then you get to like 35 or 40, and they have a midlife crisis and they blow everything up and they self sabotage, or they just honestly they're just unhappy and they hate their life because the grass is always greener. So for me, like with that whole thing, especially if you're young, it's like the way to know the grass isn't greener is just go spend some time on on the fucking other side of the grass. Go chill out there, go hang out there, then go to some other grass and go chill and try all these different lifestyles, and then you'll have context, and you'll never be like, that life looks really cool, because you've done that life, and you kind of pick apart and choose a different uh, parts of those different lifestyles that you like. So it seems like you're a guy who kind of knows what he wants. So from your agency specifically, like what does your ideal agency look like? Do you want offices? Do you want to keep things remote? Do you want to start? How many sort of clients do you want to be working with? How many services do you want to be offering? Do you want to forever continue with real estate?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. To be honest, I definitely don't want to get offices, right? So I'm really lucky. Like I'm mentored by basically the owner of an agency who is the best PPC agency in the world, voted by Google themselves. So like I'm lucky to get the perspective of what it's like running like an agency with tons of staff. And he's incredibly successful. Like don't get me wrong, he's 10 years ahead of me, always been like 10 years ahead of me. And they have an agency with offices, staff, everything. And I was on a call with him the other day, and he said in the month of May, we made £57 profit. And you got to remember, this is a multi-million-pound agency. So to me, like,
So revenue was probably what, 5, 6, 7, 800K, profit 56.
yeah, oh, millions in revenue, yeah.
What per month? I'm saying per month.
Oh yeah, per month, yeah, roughly that per month, yeah. So like to me, I'll learn those principles because this is the thing is like we can learn so much from like real whatever you want to call them, old school agencies, whatever you want to call them, because they're just so good at client services. They just have so many damn people in there that the client services have to be good, right? So I've kind of like taken those aspects of what makes a successful agency in the traditional model and just applied it to this. So for me, I want to, if I do want to go and like travel and be somewhere for 2 months, I want to be able to do that. Realistically, like I'm not the type of person who just is going to hop around all the time. I've tried it. It's great fun, but like at the moment, that's just not what I want to do. Like I love London. But definitely like growing out, really just kind of building moats around this business, building it as a brand. We started a podcast recently and just like starting to build a real brand around it. Like I took off my like branded like t-shirts and stuff just because like I just didn't want to show it on here, but like really that's like building a business that I'm proud of. And to one day, if I want to sell it, it's a real business that a real like, capital venturist or, like a private equity company would say, yes, like as a business, that's a real tangible asset I could buy. So that's my goal. Like, I don't know, like, to be honest, in terms of like a financial number, I've kind of like moved away from that. I know that by putting in the day-to-day, building out all the systems, keep doing what I'm doing, I know I'm just going to get there. It's inevitable. And I'm just kind of like now really just enjoying it day to day. Like last night I was out at Green Park with friends until like 11 p.m., just chilling, just having fun. And I want to be able to do that. I don't want to be restricted knowing that I've got to be in an office by like 8 a.m. responsible for like loads of stuff. I can just jump on Slack with my team, have my team calls. And yeah, that's just honestly how I like it. And the crazy thing is, right, I think a lot of people have this perception that if you work from home, like I'm working from my pad at the moment, that like clients won't take you seriously. And like to some extent, okay, maybe that was true. But since coronavirus has hit, everyone's working from home. So it's like I've had clients who have literally come on just putting clothes on for the call and then like going back to what they were doing. It's like so chilled. now, and things are only gonna move more in like our favor in terms of like working from home, working remotely, and like people are just more and more accepting of that model because they understand like, you know, you don't need the offices. Like Twitter, for example, have sold all of their like actual physical offices, which is crazy, and it's the
I did
same in
not know that.
London.
That's nuts.
Yeah, like if you go into the city, I don't know if you've like been around much yet. Literally, it is completely dead, and most of them are not going back. I've got friends who are like very high up in finance in the city, like they're not going back because there's just no point in going back. So yeah, I think for us, you know, it just all these things kind of play to our favor, and actually, it almost like becomes a strength now to be like, yes, this is kind of our setup, and actually, these are the reasons why it's actually better for you as the client. That's actually one thing as well. I'd say like a big shift for me was again like coming off that like what do I need, and just focusing on like how can I genuinely get the best results for my client. I think like I posted in the group, the Facebook group, for like the first time ever. Like I'm not one of those guys who posts in groups. Like I just don't do it. But like I closed this
That's one.
three.
I mean, that's one thing to mention, by the way, guys. It's like, you need to understand, to be honest, like people who are like really doing it and like having the biggest success, you know, they might pop in, Photoshop themselves, fishing, getting a shark, getting a whale, you know, every here and there. But guys, like if you're doing like the people who are usually are working in silence, they may, you know, pop their head up usually every once in a while, but for the most part, they keep their head down and just put in the work.
Yeah, so like, yeah, so to that point, I posted literally for the first time in the group. I'd been in there for months. It was a 3K a month retainer. And the reason I posted it was just because I learned something really valuable from it. From this interaction with this client, I knew from day one I would not be able to close them. It wouldn't be ethical because logistically they weren't set up. They were effed up by coronavirus. They had tons of different problems. But I just stayed in contact with them, genuinely built up a relationship, like just friend to friend. And now, honestly, I can say that now our client, this process took like weeks, verging onto months, by the way. And now, like, I know there'll be a client for life. Like, I've had clients for 3 years, like straight paying me, and it's because I spend that time to actually build up that relationship, and I can tell like pretty much straight away if we're going to click. And sometimes if we're not going to click, I'll just say, look, we could help you get to that goal, but honestly, I don't think like mindset wise we're going to be the right fit for each other. And I've turned away clients because of that, just because I know like it'll be more hassle than it's worth, to be totally honest. So yeah, like behind my screen here, I've got like literally got a printout of my clients so I can see them. So when I'm here, like in front of the screen, I know like what we're doing is actually like benefiting someone else. It's just kind of that reminder, because I found it was so easy to just kind of like sit in front of your screen, do your thing, and like what's really the output of that, you know, like you don't really see it, right? Because most of the time we're not meeting these people in person. So yeah, just like things like that, just shifting that focus onto results. And then funny thing happens when you get really good results to your clients, you get more clients, right? So yeah.
Now, one interesting thing you said about Corona, yeah, I mean, I think that's the final like nail in the coffin in terms of like I've always, and well, actually, there's a couple of things I want to mention. There is early on, it's funny. Obviously, everyone knows Kieran, my product manager. I technically Kieran used to be my boss for one day. So when I first dropped out of school, I had 3 clients, but I thought I should work at like a real agency so I can see the way that they run things and whatnot. So I actually interned for Kieran because he was the head honcho at Times Magazine's marketing subsidiary. And it was there where I found out that like, okay, shit, these guys are doing $500,000 a month and they're losing money. And I was like, that makes no, how does this, you know, they had clients like, you know, LG. I don't think I won't just say how much, but some of their top clients were paying 80, 100K a month. And it was just like, it was nuts to me. And, you know, I think it's awesome. One of the main things that I do is I don't really hang out with people in my space. Like most of my entrepreneur and business friends are in different industries because that's where I find that I learn the most. You know, I don't need like some other digital marketer, entrepreneur friend, you know, unless I actually get along with them or like purely from a friend perspective. I like to have friends where like, you know, especially a lot of my old clients I became really good friends with. And it's super interesting for me to hear about like, you know, once again, I won't mention their names, just out of anonymity, but like some of my old clients have 5-6 million a month in expenses, a month. And you know, it was interesting to see because like, you know, paper value, some of these founders are worth 20, 30, 40, 50 million. But then they live off a salary of 100K a year, because that's once again, that's their paper value. That's like, it's just tied up in there. And that gave me a hell of a lot of context. Going to the Times, their agency, gave me a hell of a lot of context, and that's where I learned. I decided from day one I want to be boutique, and I decided from day one that there is no reason to run an agency with all these extra pieces and all these moving parts and whatnot. In 2017, after having those experiences, that was kind of where I was like, okay, I want to have a boutique agency. And I want to have a boutique agency where we put results first and we put what's best for the client first, whether the client knows that it's best for them or not. And, I've always said all along, I've never had an issue with the office thing, because, very rarely has a client asked, or they've asked and I've just said, no, I don't have an office. And, if they ask why, it's only happened once or twice before. I've gone, well, if it suits you, I can get an office, but then I'm gonna have to add an extra 1,500 onto my service fees, so that way you can pay for my Nespresso addiction, my team's fancy stand-up desks, and everything else that comes with it. So up to you. And they're like, yeah, okay, all right. So even pre-corona, I've never, to be honest, I've always thought it's best for the client to be boutique, and I've always made that actually as a selling point. Because it also kind of comes down to framing. Like if a client asks like, oh, why don't you have an office? Or oh, why is your team remote? Or this or that. Like if you kind of cower and you're like, oh, it's this, boss. Whereas if you frame it positively, it's actually an advantage. So yeah, that's just a couple of things that I thought was super interesting that you mentioned there. I want to get back onto, so what is your, in terms of your appointment setters, how many do you have, how many do you have, and what channels are they reaching out on?
Yeah, so I have at the moment two, but I'm going to be taking on two more from next week. So at the moment, yeah, it's literally it's a mixture, to be honest. So it's social, it's email, and a little bit of phone. Starting to like incorporate a little bit of phone work into that as well. But it's mainly just social and email, to be honest. Everything, like we have our SOPs super clear, all the trainings like. So it's literally like plug and play, right? So if somebody new comes on, all they have to do is just follow that process. Spend a lot of time kind of honing the channels that we use in order to do that. So that's what we're doing at the moment. Recently have been testing out some ads with Google, which have actually I literally just kind of put some budget there and forgot about it. And like 4 of the calls this week I had, when I asked like, how did you get in contact? They were like, oh, I found you on Google. And I was just like, oh, crap, okay, like probably I should do some more of that. Then like I just didn't even expect it to do anything. It was more just kind of for fun. So yeah, like that's kind of what we're doing at the moment. But the plan is to actually kind of hire more of a team of appointment setters. And then where I've got my main sales guy in the UK, I want to get him to basically manage all of them, because he's kind of like, he used to run an agency. Like when I said he was a unicorn, he really is a unicorn, but just doesn't like all of the like other stuff that comes with running an agency. He's just really good at sales. And people. So I'm going to get him to basically manage all of those appointment setters as they, as I get more of them.
Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. You mentioned a little earlier that you want to, or you have thoughts that potentially one day you could sell your agency. And one thing that I love that you mentioned that you're doing is the podcast and all of these pieces of content. Like if you want to play a high level as an agency owner, I strongly recommend you create a Facebook group. I strongly recommend you create a podcast. I strongly recommend you create a YouTube channel, because off of a podcast with 200, 300 listeners, off of a YouTube channel with 1,000 people, and maybe a Facebook group with 500 to 1,000 people, I guarantee you right there, that is enough ammunition so that your agency is doing $1 million a year. I guarantee it. Because here's the thing, you just break down the numbers. Your average retainer is what, 1,500, you said? That's 1,500 pounds?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what, to do 75,000 a month, you'd have to have 50 people on board. If you've got a very good audience of 1,500 between different platforms of actual leads, and especially if these are coming through inbound, right? Because you're putting out content pertaining to if you work with gyms, if you work with personal trainers, if you work with real estate agents, if you work with e-commerce businesses, info product businesses, whatever it may be. If you have a audience of 1,000, 1,500 people, for you to convert 50 of those really isn't that hard. And that's $1 million a year business right there. And once again, that can all be done organically without even having to pay for appointment setters, without even having to pay for ads. That's the annoying thing sometimes with the education company. It's like, it would be so much easier for me to get clients if I didn't have the education company, because like some people are like, oh, it's an advantage, right? I'm like, No, it's not really an advantage when they see a video of you like breaking down like your sales calls, when they see videos of you literally going use contractor arbitrage. Like I've even had clients come to me and they're like, "Eman, couldn't I technically just buy your program and do this myself?" And I was like, yeah, I mean, to be honest, you could, in the same way you can watch fitness videos and then, train yourself. But, people who want to get the result guaranteed, go for a personal trainer. So, it adds a lot of complexity. But for anyone who doesn't have that burden of a blood sucking leech that it's GrowYourAgency.com, I think having these sort of different inbound sources is so valuable. So I love the fact that you create. I don't see enough agency owners do it, like creating a podcast, creating a Facebook group, creating this sort of stuff to drive inbound leads.
Yeah, honestly, the first episode of the podcast went live like the week or so before. The person I recorded it with is now a client. So there you go. And by the time it had 24 views, I've got another client from that who said they saw the podcast and want to become a client. That's with 24 views. So, you know what I mean? Like, because for me personally, like the idea of having, and like, this isn't like anything on you, but I wouldn't like, I'm not the kind of guy who wants like hundreds of thousands of followers and stuff like that. Like, to me, it's just like,
trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me, you don't, because then you need full-time people just to manage, because then you're stuck with like 7 full-time people just to manage this monstrosity that you built.
Yeah, and thank you for taking that burden. But like for me, honestly, like even like just having like the exposure to do this, it's like I think most people know the things that they should do, right? People know to do all this stuff. Like you're telling them, right? We're telling them this is what you should do. But it's like there's some kind of block that's stopping them from getting there. And that's why, like, for me, it all came down to actually just like creating that space in your life, stripping everything away, having some space to actually focus. That's why I honestly think this past couple of months in lockdown, if you've used it right, it's potentially like the biggest positive effect for your business that there could ever be, because you've had no distractions. People are more responsive than ever because then they've not got anything to do, right? So you can start building those relationships. So like, yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like I knew to do all of this stuff from day one. Like I said, I'm lucky enough to have like mentors who've done this and, sold businesses for multi-millions. But for whatever reason, there's like this kind of sticking point that has stopped me from doing it and just getting in that vicious loop. So to me, like, all this stuff, like breaking down like the like tactics of how to run an agency, of course, they're super important. But honestly, like most of the people listening to this are going to know this stuff already, but they're not going to do it, or they're not going to like commit to it because of like some kind of mindset reason, if they don't have the vision or if they're going to self-sabotage. So like, that's what I always say to people, like work on that first and then this stuff comes later. That's why like in your course, obviously an agency incubator, you have the mindset stuff, which is world class. I mean, Kaizen Cure as well. Honestly, like that's like honestly like one of the best programs I've ever done, and it's just kind of like sitting there in the background. I think that's so valuable for people, and I recommend like everyone actually starts there, because once you've built that foundation, then all of this stuff just happens. That's why it took me like a good number of years to get it done, because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Like it's just figuring that out first,
Mm-hmm. And one last thing that I want to mention. One last thing that I want to mention, because this is something that I think most people should be aware of, because I definitely F this up, is you mentioned selling your agency. I never have any intention of selling my agency, but it would be nice to know that I could if I wanted to. Right now, as it is, I can't. And that's basically just even based off of my name. Your robotrevenue.com, like that is a brand. And I think you should build your agency as a brand. I'll tell you off camera, we're still going back and forth and whatnot, but I'm trying to buy a domain for $80,000. It's proving a little harder than I would have wanted. But that'll turn the agency into a brand. Like we have this internal thing. Danny and Luis are on my side and they think we should rebrand the agency. Kieran is like, no, I like the fact that it's like, I mean, it's such a piss take because my agency is called IAG Media. We don't even do media anymore. Like that's from when I was a creative agency. Like it makes no sense at all, my name. And Kieran likes it because of just how like endearing it is. Danny, Luis, and I want to like rebrand it, and we want to rebrand it. And right now we're also building our own custom software internally for our clients. So that's another huge thing that you can do, is any sort of assets that you can build And anything that, because I also heard you mention, building a moat, anything that you can do to build a moat around your agency, then later down the line, you can exit your agency very, very easily for 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, especially you need to understand that most agencies out there are used, like industry standard for agency is 3 to 15%. So if you've got an agency that has incredible cash flows and you've got margins of even 50+%, you are literally any investor's or merger specialist dream. So yeah, that's just another thing to mention. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man. And that's the thing. Like, it's just nice to know that you could, right? Because then if you've got that in the back of your mind, it's like, it helps you to then know, like, okay, like we are solid. We can be confident in ourselves and like selling that service. And when I like speak to people who are just kind of like starting out, honestly, I think the biggest thing is just like people being confident, and it's just like giving them that confidence, and like building a real agency then gives you that confidence when you're speaking to real business owners. So yeah, totally agree on that, man.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, dude, that pretty much wraps it up. It's been an awesome interview. You're absolutely killing it. It's awesome to see. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me on, man. It's been a pleasure.